My name is Frida, and I will help to moderate this call tonight. Thanks to all of you guys for joining this call about heat strike. You are the smart guys who know that even though it might not be very hot right now, weather can change very quickly. You're the people with the foresight to see that we need to prepare now for when it gets really hot. So it's great to be in your pleasant company. This call will take about like an hour. It'll probably finish even earlier, so you have plenty of time to get to your football if that is your choice for this evening. We have a great lineup for you. We have the wonderful Ned to help with tech. Thanks so much, Ned. We have Nula. Nula, if you want to wave or do whatever. Nula is going to explain a bit more about heat strike, where the idea came from, what it will involve. Then there is Miranda. Oh, Miranda. Oh yeah, there you are. Do you want to wave or something? There's Miranda, and she will talk a little bit about the coalition building and relationship building work that's been happening around heat strike. We will hopefully later be joined by Ian from the Bakers Union, who will talk a little bit about how this is very relevant to the workers they represent and unions. And then Liam, do you want to wave, Liam? Is going to talk, thanks, about how local groups or any kind of group or any individual can join heat strike, and we'll have a bit of time at the end for questions. And if people want to start talking about how you guys can take action in your local areas, that would be amazing. There will be a follow-up email at the end of this call, so any information, any materials we talk about today will be sent to you after this call. And if you guys can stay muted when you're not talking, that's great. If you want to turn on your camera, that's lovely, because it's nice to see faces. If you have any questions about any tech stuff, just put them into the chat. If you don't know how to find the chat, Google it, but it's in the bar where all the other options are on Zoom. And you should be able to turn on captions as well. If for whatever reason it's hard to understand us, that should be enabled. Cool. I think that's it. I'll pass on to Nuala for the first section.
Thanks, Frida. Heat strike is a plan of action around the UK for the hottest day of the year. We're growing a coalition of people who are committed to workers' rights and climate justice, and who are ready to act when everyone can feel that the climate crisis is on their doorstep. We'll take the inevitable drop in productivity that comes when extreme heat hits the UK and serve it back to employers and the government as a protest against their inaction. And we've got 3 demands. They are for a maximum working temperature, which is something that the Bakers Union and the TUC and a lot of other people in the union space have been arguing for many years. There's minimum working temperature in the UK. There's not a maximum working temperature. I believe there's a maximum working temperature for transporting livestock, but there isn't one for how hot it's allowed to get in people's workplaces. We're also demanding a heat furlough scheme, so that as the climate crisis hits and we get more and more extreme heat, that working people aren't forced to pay for the cost by having to take holiday, which happened to a large amount of people when it hit 40 degrees in 2022. So we're asking for a heat furlough scheme. And then finally, we're demanding a climate action plan. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is a bit of an exercise just for us to see what other people think about what kind of temperature would be the right temperature to call the heat strike. So I can't see it, but you should see on your screen a slide with a QR code. And there's about to be something go in the chat as well. So you can either scan that QR code or click the link in the chat, and it'll allow you to put your preference for like how hot would it need to get to call a heat strike, to say it's too hot to work. Obviously, we're experiencing the effects of the climate crisis. What should that temperature be for you? So we'll give people a little bit of time just to do that.
The link is in the chat and now the slide is there.
Anyone having trouble getting through to that link, just shout and we can help.
I think Ella made a good point. I think we're thinking less about at what point it's too hot for people to work in certain jobs, and we're thinking more like, at what point do people in the UK feel like actually it's too hot now? Like, I would go like on the streets about this. I would do something about it. But it's like, I guess, there's no right answer to this. Yeah, I think quite a few people have responded now. If you want to start sharing the results, maybe, Ned?
I think the big spike is 30, and then the 3 along from that is 40, I'm
Okay.
guessing.
Yeah.
Or 4 along from that.
Oh no, it tells you the number of people who thought it. I think it would be 30, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, if we can go back to the slides, and I'll talk you through where our process is at for calling the heat strike. Okay, so this is a timeline of the hottest day each year for the last 11 years. So you can see like roughly where they tend to fall. Like ordinarily, they're kind of grouped in the second half of July, but you get some outliers in June and September. Strangely, they hardly ever happen in August. And the heat strike team are currently working with a trigger temperature of 36 degrees, which is what the temperature we think will work to launch this campaign. And our demand for a maximum working temperature in people's workplaces is for 30, which is in line with the Trade Union Congress and other unions. But in order to launch this campaign, which is based on ordinary people feeling like the climate crisis has arrived, and this is at the moment we're working with 36 degrees. Okay. And I think the other thing to say is, as probably lots of people have seen, that this is already happening globally. So over 1,000 people died on pilgrimages to Mecca this year, and a large percentage of those fatalities were from heat stress. And that also the US has experienced repeated like intense heat waves. And part of what's happened in the UK, where we went from 2021, 2022, where we had 38 and then 40 degrees. And then we've had this cool year last year, and the summer this year is quite cool, is part of the process where the world shifts from El Nino to La Nina. So El Nino makes, like the general understanding is El Nino makes the world hotter, and that applies predominantly to the global south, and that the lower pressure is then and to southern Europe, and the lower pressure is pushed up to the north. And El Nino has now changed, and we're entering into La Nina, which is the one that signals hotter weather for us right up here in northern Europe. And that shift is in flux. So from the meteorologists we've spoken to, this summer is normal, whatever that means at this point. But I guess the important thing for us is that even if it might not feel very hot right now, if the UK were never to get into the high 30s again, then we wouldn't have a problem, right? But we all know we do have a problem. We know the climate crisis is here, and we know that it's causing extreme heat in the UK. So our job is to be prepared to spring into action at that moment when everyone's feeling the heat, whenever that falls. So I'm going to pass now to Miranda, who's going to say a bit about the work that we've been doing last year and this year to like build that coalition that's ready to spring into action.
Thanks, Nuala. Yeah, so we're really excited to show you some of the organisations that we've been talking to and starting to work with. So this is just some of the organisations that we've been in conversation with. We've been in conversation with over 30. We have been really working hard to reach out to the trade union space, as well as climate justice groups that are more our bread and butter. But this has been really important to us because we've really identified like working with the trade union space is really important to this campaign. We've worked in other climate groups before, and a lot of the actions we've taken have been successfully undermined by the right-wing media because they have been portrayed as out of touch with ordinary working people. So our action is really designed to work together with workers and with trade unions in coalition. And we're really excited that Equity, the Bakers Union and the Fire Brigades Union have all passed motions in support of heat strike. We're really looking forward to working with those organizations. Like, Ian will talk more from the Bakers Union, but we know that, like, there are really intolerable conditions for workers in their, in those industries when it gets incredibly hot. And of course, firefighters are on the front line of the climate crisis, so they have such moral authority to speak on this subject. We are looking as well to connect with people in workplaces who would like to do to take action in workplaces. So later on there'll be a breakout group, and if you do feel like you would like to organize in your workplace, then please join that group. And also, if you're part of a group that is not pictured here, we are talking to other groups. This isn't the full extent of it, but please do get in touch if you think, actually, I'm aware of a group, or I'm part of a group that would be really great to be involved in this, and you don't think we're currently in touch with you. That would be really helpful. We're actually not looking to be a big public facing organization. We really want to provide something that's going to serve the existing climate movement, bring it together, help strengthen the movement ecosystem, and not kind of compete with existing groups. So yes, please let us know if you think that there's other groups that we should be in touch with, basically. I'll pass on.
So we know that when we get kind of extreme heat waves, that we usually get about 5 to 7 days notice, that like the meteorologists can tell when that really hot day is going to fall about a week out. So that's another reason why we need to get prepared now, because we know we won't get a huge amount of notice at the time. And then when we do hit that week-long period before the day of the heat strike, it's going to be really important to spread the word even further, to make this as big as possible, and to really do that job of like claiming the drop in productivity when it's too hot for people to work as a like national heat strike. And so hence on the day we announce the heat strike, we'll also drop a giant banner from Brighton Pier. If anyone's interested in getting involved in that banner drop, then you can also email that info@heatstrike.uk email address that I put in the chat. And I guess the tabloids are obsessed with this like core what a scorcher like image of a beach on a heat wave, right? And we want to replace that image with an image of a beach with heat strike now, and say, this is not something to be celebrated anymore. It's a reason for people to stay home from work, and it's a reason to protest, because we need to do something to stop things like these extremes getting worse and worse. And then on the day of the heat strike, there's a variety of flat pack actions that people can do in their local communities or at work. So I'm going to pass over to Liam now, who's going to take you through the flat pack, which has got the rundown of all of those things.
So in a second, you're going to see the flat pack, which is what you'll get emailed a link to when you sign up through heatstrike.uk. So when you get your welcome email, it will give you a link to this flat pack. And essentially, this is your guide to striking while it's hot. So as you'll see at the beginning, it tells you the two main ways you can take action on the hottest day. So that's heat strike, so staying home if you can and sharing the strike on social media, and setting up a cool station to support your local community to not face the heat alone. If you go down a bit further, it shows you and anyone in your local group who signs up to it a bit more about the question that we've gone through now in the presentation about when's it likely to happen, and some more information about heat strike generally. But essentially, this is a place where you can find how-to guides on taking action on the hottest day, and also loads of assets and resources for you to use. So if we click on the local group area, because it's got an area for individuals, union members, and local groups, because there's different assets and information that we think all of those people could use. You can drop into the local group section there, and you'll find a little bit more information about cool stations, banner drops you can do on the hottest day, and ways you can share it on social media. So if you go onto call stations, you'll see that it tells you how to set up a call station and what one is. We think there's lots of different ways you could do it in your community. And of course, also reminding you to take photos and share that on social media too. And it's also got some of the resources right there that you can use. So we've got these flyers that can be given out and turned into fans so people can stay cool. And it's also got signs you can download and print and a little bit of information on that as well. If you go onto the banner drop one, it's similar. It's got some examples of what banners you could make, but it's also got some how-to guides on how to make a banner as a link, and a little bit more information about where we're hoping we'll have banners on the hottest day. So the idea is that there'll be a big banner drop just before the heat strike, and then potentially we'll see more banners appear on piers around the UK. But you're also welcome to do banners anywhere you like if there isn't a pier near you. So down at the bottom, underneath these main actions, it's got a few suggestions of what you can do right away. So as we know that we're not going to have a lot of time between knowing when the heat strike's called and when you get that email to say that we're doing the heat strike between taking action. So it's a great idea to show these resources and talk to your group about it now. And then right at the bottom, if you click on the thing underneath print files and social media assets, it's got links to download a whole range of things you can share on social media, posters you can get printed so that you can have them ready to put up around the city or town where you live when the heat strikes. It's also got signs for the call stations, and it's got designs for stickers as well if you want to get a load of stickers printed. So there's loads of information in there. And if you are here from a union today, the union section has even more information and background on how to pass a motion in your union, and a lot of research and different ways that unions have been fighting for a maximum working temperature already, and talking about how heat strike can help with that. So yeah, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but we're also about to move on to questions, I think. I will just share in the chat, based on some of the comments, one of the many social media graphics that you can download when you get access to the pack.
Awesome. Thanks, Liam. Great. Yeah, I think that's the end of the presentations. Short and sweet. Do people have any questions about any of this? Or you can put them into the chat, or you can unmute. So someone's asking, what happens if the hottest day falls on a weekend? The impact could be reduced. What do people think? Yula?
Yeah, you're right. That's our worst fear. I think we'd have to make a decision in the moment. If it was 38 degrees on Friday and 39 on Saturday, we might call the heat strike on the Friday. But I agree. It's kind of ideal if it falls during the week. But I also think this is something we're anticipating that will happen again and again. Like if we get a hot summer, it's likely to go over 36 multiple times. And so each time will just help to like grow the numbers of people who know it's happening and can take part. Yeah.
Thank you. Omo Toke says some people work on weekends, which is very valid. The job center opens on Saturday. Yeah, so there's definitely stuff you could do on the weekend. It wouldn't be all lost or anything. It would still have an impact to say and tomorrow. Yeah. Do you do you want to pick it? Oh, do you want to pick a place? Got it. Do we want to pick it places? What do we think? Liam, did you want to say something there?
Yeah, I'll just say that in the union section of the flat pack, there is ideas for what people can do who are members of unions or at workplaces. So what we've anticipated there is this idea of lunchtime walkouts, or potentially having a gathering in the morning before work where people can have heat strike placards and hold their union banners and show that they're supporting the heat strike and getting involved in that way. But again, on the Cool Station page, if you're a local group who wants to support workers in your area, there are different ideas there about where you could do one. So you could, if there's a big workplace in your area, for example, an Amazon warehouse, you could set up a Cool Station outside it to give workers access to water and information about maximum working temperatures on their way in and or out of work. So I guess I don't think we're anticipating like actual picket lines that we're asking people not to cross, but there is lots of information in the flatback about ways that you can do this at work, including a health and safety poster that can be put up in workplaces to inform people about staying safe in heat waves.
Awesome. And that yeah, and Chris is also saying we should pick it in a different style with bottles of water to give away. That's exactly the idea. So you could sort of combine a Cool Station and a picket. What is the Met Office definition of a heat wave?
Good question. I actually don't know. I mean, when we got up to 30, we had a yellow heat alert, didn't we? I don't know what count. Ned, do you know what counts as a red?
I've put the link into chat about what the definition is.
What is the definition? What is a heat wave? A heat wave is an extended period of hot weather relative to the expected conditions. Okay, someone read it. It's too long. Nuala, if you want to read it, and then you can tell us once you've read it. 28. Anyway, someone else figure that one out.
I think the main thing here, going back to the thing that the task on the app we did at the beginning, is what matters here is when can people feel the heat. So we know that in previous heat waves, we've seen a lot more people sign up to take climate action or join XR's mailing list. And so what we're looking for is a heat where people can actually feel that the climate crisis is here, because we know people in the UK a lot of the time see it as something far away, or that's either in the future or in geographically far away. And so this is a way of like making sure that climate and taking action on it and looking after vulnerable people and workers is at the forefront of people's minds, and we give them a way to take action together across our movements when they can feel the heat. So it's that's what it's about.
Nuala?
There was a question also, if there isn't a heat wave this summer that's hot enough, will it be postponed to next year? And I think the answer is if it really doesn't get very hot this summer, then we won't try and do it if we don't think it's going to work. And part of the thinking, like Liam was saying behind this, is that it's quite hard to get people involved in climate action, but at these moments it gets a lot easier. And so this, there's all sorts of good initiatives going on that groups are doing and then they're busy with, and that's totally legitimate. And at the moment when this campaign can be particularly effective is when we'll do it, but we won't try and do it when it's cold and wet and like only the most committed of climate activists will come out.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, there has been heat strike work, right? There has been all this work in the unions, for example, which has been happening whatever the weather was. But for these kind of actions, like a Cool Station or people saying it's too hot for me to work, it's sort of gotta be hot. Christopher is asking, can we work in coordination with XR France or XR Italy? It would be, so that's Extinction Rebellion, if anyone's not aware. It would be more impactful across Europe. Is there a Euro Extinction Rebellion group? Any thoughts on that?
You might be the best person to answer that one, Frida.
I can try it. So I know there's definitely Extinction Rebellion groups in France and Italy, and also there's this group called A22. So that's a alliance of groups that, for example, Just Stop Oil is part of. So they take very disruptive action, and they definitely have very active groups in France and Italy that have also, I think especially in Italy, they've been doing work around extreme weather and flooding. The problem is that heat waves don't coincide always. I think probably in like France and Italy, they would coincide more than they would maybe with the UK. So I guess my concern would be that we do a lot of work, and it's hard enough to get a lot of groups to do something at the same time in the UK. I feel like it would probably be even harder to get that to happen in other countries. And then the extreme weather might happen on slightly different days. So that would be my concern. But I think it is a cool idea. And if someone here is interested in helping us to make that happen, that would be amazing. Just put it into the chat if that is something you're interested in. Nuala, do you want to add something?
I was just going to say there's a couple of questions about like how we make this effective or impactful, and should we picket Parliament and things like that. And it's definitely something we're working on, is when, you know, maybe the first time we do this, or maybe once it's gained a bit of momentum, we'll also add a kind of mass action part of it. And probably we would do that the Saturday following the hottest day, because usually the heat builds and builds and builds and then drops, and then you get temperatures where it's more accessible for like a whole range of people to come out on the streets together. So that's potential, but we don't want to kind of do that until we've got a bit of momentum going. And then the other thing to say is, obviously this is not a like legal balloted strike. It's a bit more like climate strikes. But that said, there are things that workers can do. For instance, they can walk off the job under Section 44 if they believe they're not safe. And during the pandemic, some unions issued letters of support to say, if you use Section 44 to leave your workplace or to not go in because of the risk of coronavirus, we will support you. And that's an individual action. It's not collective action like a strike, but it doesn't mean lots of people can't do it. So there are ways for this to be quite to have like teeth in some way. But some of that will be up to kind of unions and our conversations with them and what they feel is right to do. But I guess part of what I'm saying is we're building something here, and it will build, and there's interesting ways that it can build over time. Liam, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I can, but also feel free to move us on to what we're supposed to be doing. Just on that as well, on the keeping record of victories, I think it's just important to again say, like, we've been working very closely with a lot of unions, and we're building more and more links with unions who have already been fighting for quite a long time. I'm saying this partly because I'm aware Ian hasn't been able to be here and speak to us yet. For a maximum working temperature, it's something that's been going on for a long time in the union space, particularly led by the Bakers Union and the TUC. And so our demands are specifically taken from to amplify the voices of the work that is ongoing. So we'll totally be amplifying their victories in the union space and working with them. And at a recent union rally that was well attended, we had a lot of unions in the UK express their support, but we also had unions from, and this links back to the international question, unions from Italy join, because in Italy, unions are fighting for a heat furlough scheme to protect workers when they can't work in hot weather. And we also had a union member from India, where they're fighting for Amazon workers in India who are being forced to work in seriously extreme heat. So it is also an internationalist space, and those bridges are being built and amplified.
Cool. I hope my internet is all right. Interrupt me if it doesn't sound great. There have been a couple of questions on flooding. So I just put a link into the chat.
Key things that people can do now: sign up at heatstrike.uk. You'll get the flat pack that Liam's just shown with all the resources, and you'll also get the alert that we've called the heat strike when we do call it. I will just chuck in the chat a link to that now. Maybe someone's done that. Great, thanks, Frida. Speak to your local group or workplace or union about heat strike. So the flat pack's got loads of stuff for local groups. It's also got loads of stuff for union members. There's also that poster in there, so that's a nice way. That health and safety in the heat at work poster is a nice way to start a conversation with your union or your workplace about heat strike. And And you can also donate to Heatstrike to help us continue to build the network of groups and distribute resources to people. So we're going to set up 4 breakout rooms that people can go to, and they'll each be named, and you can select to go into one, and one of us will be in each of them. So one is for banner drops, either if you want to do a banner drop with your local group, if you want to do a banner drop off a pier locally, or if you want to take part in that big banner drop off Brighton Pier when we announce the heat strike. The next one is for call stations. So if you want to work with your local group or your local community to set up a call station, which could be as simple as a gazebo, some water, some flyers, and could include loads of other ideas that you come up with. The third one is for workplace organising. If you'd like to think about whether you might want to organise things around heat strike in your workplace or with your union. That's the third one. And then the final one is for anyone who's thinking about taking part in heat strike just as an individual, or just has any other questions that are not related to those first 3 breakout rooms.
I think we had a really, really great conversation in our breakout room. There were lots of great ideas for cool stations. So I imagine it's similar in other breakout rooms. Join. Awesome. I think we don't have that much more to say anyway, to be honest. I hope everyone had a great discussion in their breakout rooms. We had an amazing discussion in the cool station room. And I hope so. Now you will all have, obviously Nuala has something to say. Give me 1 second, Nuala. Now you have all signed up to Heat Strike, and we can put the link into the chat again if you haven't seen it yet. And so we'll be in touch with you about more information about when Heat Strike is, but also how you can stay in touch with each other, or how you can let us know once you've organized some kind of cool station or whatever other action banner drop. Thank you, Liam. And yeah, over to Nuala.
Yeah, sorry, just one thing. One of the groups that we're working with is Fossil Free London, and they just asked us to do a shout out for 2 things that they're doing coming up. So that's one of them that's just gone into the chat, is like a protest song session. So if you want to make your protests even stronger with like good songs like Fossil Free London do, then you can join that session. And then they're also doing an action around stopping city airport expansion on Saturday, the 27th of July from 10 a.m. So I think that's about to go in the chat as well. They're really great. So yeah, get involved if you're interested. All right, I don't have anything else to say.
Awesome. And Norm is asking, when will we receive the video and transcript at this meeting? Because we can't watch it enough. It was such a thrilling evening. I think we will send you a link, hopefully, in the follow-up email, which you will receive later tonight or tomorrow morning. Awesome. I think that's it. Thanks so much to sacrifice your 1 hour of your precious evening. And we finished exactly at 8, so I'm very happy. And have a lovely rest of the evening. And I hope to see you soon on the street, or whatever else you'll be organizing your heat strike presence, maybe at home. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.